This is the Inquisitive Minds Podcast.
Hey, thank you for tuning in to the Inquisitive Minds Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Smith. Today, I am joined by the brilliant mind and dangerously talented man who dreamed up the Po Folks Cabaret. He began with a love of music and ventured out into the world of sideshow. He's mastered a huge set of skills, which include singing, playing guitar and drums, juggling, walking on stilts, atmosphere/non-stage performance, contact juggling, magic and comedy. His most dangerous talents include fire eating, fire breathing, fire juggling, razor blade eating, glass walking, fire contact juggling, human blockhead, glass eating, fire snakes, bed of nails, and throwing playing cards. Welcome to the podcast, Devi Della Fiamma.
And on top of that, I've been married 3 times.
Oh, that's a talent
That's
in
the
itself.
danger there.
There you go. How are you doing today, man? Welcome.
I'm doing great.
I am extremely excited for you to be here.
Thank you.
I've heard so much about you, and I have quite a few questions from some people I've reached out to. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, other than your intro. First off,
Well, I'm a simple country boy who likes simple things, and then making those simple things very complicated.
okay, okay, that's a good description.
I've been a performer my whole life. I've been on stage since I was about 3. Started singing in churches and little country churches in central West Virginia.
Now, where are you from?
Originally, I was born in New Orleans.
Okay.
But my family's from West Virginia, so moved there when I was a kid. Grew up mainly in West Virginia. Traveled around some, but that's my home state. My home is West Virginia, but New Orleans will always be my home.
Now, I am chomping at the bit because you have so many different skills and talents, and I'm trying to contain myself. But in your best interest, you want to tell us more about the Po Folks Cabaret?
Yeah. The Po Folks Cabaret is my. Oh, I mean, I can't just call it mine, but it was a group of performers that I guess the front man and I do all the logistical stuff, but it's a loose-knit group of performers from West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and a few other surrounding states that, we do. The Po Folks Cabaret is styled after classical vaudeville variety shows.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of everything. Like we went through a lot of the things that I do, and a lot of what I did developing those skills was to be able to do a one-man variety show. And then I have dancers and other performers and aerialists. And
Now, how long has that show been around?
We started the Po Folks Cabaret, me and my last ex-wife, in, I want to say, 2010. So about 10 years now we've been traveling. And
I feel like a reemergence of vaudeville would be an amazing thing.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I love sideshow and I love music. I'm a classically trained musician. But when you go to most normal shows, you get one thing. So you go to a concert, you see a band or maybe a couple bands, but you see music. You get that thing. You go to the theater, you get a play or something like that. Where in variety shows, vaudeville, each act was different. You get a little bit of something. If you don't like the juggler now, you might like the dancer on the next routine. You may like the singer. You may,
Well, from what I understand, that vaudeville is what birthed stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And that's where my heart lies. And just, you mentioned the sideshow acts and whatnot. I have a group called the Stolen Stitches.
I love Stolen
coming
Stitches.
in October.
I love those guys.
Yeah, to speak here. So
I was going to plug them, actually. I brought one of their T-shirts.
Oh, okay. Feel free.
Yeah, Danger Dave and folks, Charlie and Claudette are wonderful performers. I've worked with them for a few years now with the Bourbon Ballyhoo in Kentucky, and a few other shows. They're great performers. Pittsburgh should be proud to have them around.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to having them on the show.
Yeah.
Now, I obviously have a trusted few group of individuals I reach out to when I have a guest. And when I was giving your resume and asking, what would you ask this guy, the most two common questions I got were, how the fuck did he not die yet?
Fair enough.
And the second one is, what happened in his childhood to him?
Two good questions. On the first one, I already lost money on that. I probably should have died by now. So I have no explanation for how I haven't died yet.
Okay, now you mentioned you started performing at the age of 3.
Yeah, about that.
What were you doing there? I mean, I imagine singing and dancing.
My mother was very religious and in church, and she was a singer, but never really, not like performer. She just liked to sing and things like that. So she discovered early on that I have an older brother and a younger sister, and we're all pretty decent singers. So she figured out early on that she could put us up on stage at church, and people thought it was cute, and we could carry a tune in a bucket. So it was good enough.
Okay. This is going to jump back and forth, but this has been on my mind for about 2 weeks now. What the fuck are fire snakes, man?
Oh, fire snakes. So, do you know what poi is?
No.
Okay, so poi is originally it was a Polynesian dance, art, martial form.
Okay.
Basically, and you see it a lot. It's very popular with fire performers and flow artists these days. And it's basically just a chain or rope with a ball on the end of it linked to your fingers, and you spin it and dance with it. So that's poi. A snake, rather than having a ball on the end of it, you've got, and it's about this long. Most of the length of it is a wick, and it's on fire.
About 18 to 24 inches, would you say?
Yeah, something like that. And I have a few pictures on my Facebook page. And
that's
things
performance-based?
Yeah. It's like poi, but it's a different type of prop for spinning.
I have wondered that since I saw it, and I know we have Google, and it's easy to look up things, but I like to get the answer right from the source. And it
has a much better effect for me. I really like snakes because poi, it's cool to see, and you can get a lot of interesting things, to do with them. But snakes have much more fire, and when you first light them and first start spinning, you can hear it sounds like a jet engine. Just whoo, 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 whoo. You can just hear it, and you're in the middle of it.
I imagine that's fascinating to watch.
Yeah,
it's a real treat for the eyes. Now, you mentioned the singing and instruments. Mm-hmm. When did it take the turn from that to a more obscure side of performance?
I'd say about 2003. I spent.
And about what age were you?
Let's see. In 2003, I was like 26.
Okay.
So I went to college after high school. I went to college and did 4 years in music education. I'm a classically trained saxophonist and percussionist.
You're just more impressive by the moment, dude. Like, seriously.
Thank you. So I spent several years doing that, traditional classical music stuff, and in the process got into hand drumming, took a few classes, did percussion ensemble and things like that at Glenville State in West Virginia. Great music program there, teachers. And so that got me interested in hand drumming and more like African, Middle Eastern, world music type things. So that kind of turned me onto that. And then I got married, had a kid, dropped out of college. I had my wonderful daughter, Lexi, and shout out to my son, Dorian, too. He's 13. So we had Lexi, dropped out of college for a few years, got divorced, and went back to Marshall, decided to go back to school.
Okay.
And finished a degree at Marshall in religious studies with a music minor.
Okay.
Ethnomusicology is what I wanted to go into in grad school, cultural music traditions.
So just to veer off, a quick question.
Sorry, long story.
No, it's perfect. It's got my attention. That's what we're here for, something fascinating. Now, you went to school initially for a degree in music?
Music education.
Music education, and you finished with a degree in religious education?
Religious studies.
Religious studies with a minor
arts, in music.
What was the turn? Because that's a shift.
There was a few things. I've always been interested in religion, world religions, as, sociology, as an understanding people, as a cultural phenomenon, not the theology part of it. So when I was at Marshall, when I went back to school, I did a year in music composition at Marshall, and most of my credits transferred from where I'd studied before. What didn't was my private lessons. And as a music major, you have to have 7 semesters of private lessons. I did the math and realized that I could get a religious studies degree in the same amount of time that it would take me to just basically take private lessons for another 5 semesters to get my education.
Okay.
So I was always interested in that. I'd already been turned on to world music and things like that. So ethnomusicology seemed much more. I was much more interested in that.
Now, I'm sure where you ended up now, where you are now, is not where the initial goal was leaving with that degree. So,
No.
where was the goal to take that degree?
I wanted to go to grad school for ethnomusicology to continue studying. There's not a lot of literature, not a lot of study done on the analysis, technical musical studies of say Middle Eastern drumming and Middle Eastern melodies and African traditions, Sub-Saharan West African drumming, things like that. Because music in those cultures is a whole different concept than it is here, and there's a lot of things we can learn from it.
Okay, that's fascinating. So you get out, you got your degree. You're like, boom! I bet I could eat this fire. Or
well. That was a couple of years later.
Before you answer, I want to tell people how you were introduced to me. Someone commented on the Inquisitive Minds page and said you should have this guy on. Okay, I'm watching the thread, and I'd love to, and so they show an old business card, and they said, I remember you walked up and handed this to me, and immediately ate a razor blade.
Yep. That was my friend Sarah. I graduated or went to high school with her.
So. And I have so many questions about eating, but so you got your degree. I'm trying to keep it linear. Most of the time on a show like this, I have to wrangle in the guest. I find I'm wrangling in myself today. And I'm looking at you, and I'm only going to tell you what's on my mind. I'm like, wow, outside of some piercings, we don't look that damn different.
No,
so I'm thinking, what could have been?
Yeah, it's a lifetime of poor decisions. There's a lot of that in there.
Okay, I'm sorry. So you got your degree.
Mm-hmm. So I graduated and was married a second time and had my son Dorian right before I graduated college.
The sequel.
Yeah, the sequel. And kind of to make a long story short, my ex-wife didn't want to leave the state. She, that's really what it came down to. She wasn't comfortable leaving the state. There are no ethnomusicology programs in West Virginia where I was at, so
I would have never guessed.
Yeah. So Pitt was where I was looking
never
at.
Guessed.
Pitt had an ethnomusicology program. Pitt, UVA, and a couple other surrounding states. I'm just going to ignore Ohio because that doesn't count. So basically, it came down to she didn't want to leave the state. I missed my opportunity to enroll in grad school and all that, and I just took a local job around there. Spent a lot of time working in kitchens because you can get a job anywhere if you can cook.
Yeah.
Including here in Pittsburgh. I lived in Castle Shannon a couple times, not too far from here.
Yeah, not too far away from here.
Yeah, I worked at the Wing Hearts in the South Side and Carmela's Plates and Pints when I was around here. Good
so
places.
I'm just trying to find the point to where you picked up, I guess, the first obscure performance art.
Okay, so that was after I got into drumming for belly dancers around 2003. A friend of mine introduced me to the SCA, the Society of Creative Anachronisms. They do medieval reenactments. It's a group just about every weekend somewhere there's a local event. So I went to my local event and met some drummers and met some belly dancers. And that was it for me. Met the belly dancers and was like, all right, this is my thing. I can do this.
I'm home.
Yeah, so got in with the belly dancer community, started playing and performing with some local dancers around Charleston, West Virginia. And really, they got me into the fire performance thing. Several of them got into fire fans, fire eating.
So that was step
like
one.
That. Yeah. Step one's the belly dancers.
Okay.
Step two is take over the world.
Step two is take over the world. Now, how long were you with the fire eaters and fire performers, I'll say, before you decided, okay, let me give that a shot?
Maybe 2 years.
Okay.
That was the musician, the drummer, something like that. A lot of the dancers were doing fans and staff and things like that. My ex-wife, my wife at the time, was a dancer, and she did a few of those things. So they were into it before I was. But then I met a fire breather. We were working at a festival grounds in West Virginia as festival organizers, and a guy showed up one weekend who had gone to Coney Island Sideshow School and was a fire breather. And I talked him into showing me how to do it.
Okay, that's a lot more reasonable of a time frame than I expected. I didn't.
Yeah.
I was worried you were going to be like, "Oh, I've seen him for a week," and I was like, "I got to do it."
Yeah, I know a lot of people want to do that. You know, when they see me performing or they find out that what I do with fire and things like that, they're like, "Oh, how do I learn to spin fire poi?" It's like, well, you learn to spin poi first, just like any other fire prop. How do I learn fire staff or anything like that?
Without revealing, too much trade secrets. Mm-hmm. How does one practice fire eating, or does it? Have you burnt yourself? How does it work?
Okay. So I don't want to give away all the secrets, but one of the secrets is you always burn yourself.
Oh, yeah. That's a horrible secret.
Yeah, it is a horrible secret. That's So sometimes it's fine. It's just little minor things. That's just an inconvenience, and then sometimes the inside of your mouth is just one big blister. A lot of it has to do with like wind and environmental issues.
I had no idea.
And then, some of it's just practice, and there are techniques to doing it, but there's no real good way to practice fire eating
without burning yourself.
Without it being on fire.
Okay, well that's dedication to another
fire
level.
Eating
then.
and even with breathing, you can practice with water.
Yeah.
But yeah, fire eating. And I remember the first time I did it, a great friend of mine who's passed on now, who's a stilt walker in West Virginia, performer, legend to me, Charlie Herb. We were at a festival, and he was a fire eater and breather, and he was performing, and I talked him into showing me how to do it. And it's just kind of, you just go for it. You learn a few little things of how to hold it and how to do it, but then you just have to go for it. Nut up or shut up.
That's fascinating. I thought, or I'm sure many of us thought, that there's some, weird secret, but that you're boom, boom, it's done.
Yeah, I think that you blow it out or something like that.
But to hear you have a mouthful of blisters at times.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And how long does it take for something like that to heal?
It can take a week. It's like any other
for the love of the
injury.
craft.
It just depends on how bad it is.
Now, did you move on from fire eating to eating other things, or did you move on to? You said he was a stilt walker. Did you move on to another craft next?
Let's see. I learned fire breathing was my first fire prop thing, but I'd started spinning poi and staff and things like that years before that. I started spinning poi probably 2003 or 2004 with some of my Pittsburgh friends, and it was probably 2003 I started, and it was 2011 before I lit up poi.
Okay.
So I had a good 7-8 years of practice.
Really got the art down.
I didn't spin seriously. You can definitely do it in a lot shorter time period, because it was like a lot of off and on. But it's a matter of doing it until you're comfortable with it and you don't hit yourself. And then learning fire safety. There's a lot more to doing fire than just learning how to use your prop. There's learning how fuels react and the right types of fuels to use. There's clothing. There's
so many more levels
and rain and temperature.
I would have even thought of.
Yeah, there's a lot to learning fire safety.
Now, does the wind shut down the performances a lot?
It can. It depends on props. Like with fire eating is probably the most sensitive. With it only takes a little bit of wind to push the flame. Horizontally.
Okay.
And then, if you don't have any facial hair, it's not as big a concern. You can work with it. But having a beard, once it starts going horizontally, it's just either going to go up my nose or catch my beard on fire, depending on which way I'm facing. So, yeah, I cut that out at pretty low wind. Fire eating or fire breathing doesn't take much wind to mess with that either, because, say, the wind's coming in from my left, then I can't blow anything out to my left. I have to be very conscious, because if I go that way, then the wind's going to blow it back in my face. So I have to go forward, up, going with the wind, things like that.
Now, with all these skills you've amassed, I often ask a linear questions, but there had to be a time where you were either practicing or learning multiple.
Oh, all the
at
time.
The same time.
I'm always learning new things, developing new things.
At what point did you decide, okay, I can turn this into a passion, I'm assuming, because you don't dedicate yourself to this amount of time.
That's true.
Without being passionate about it.
I mean, part of it comes with I've always been a performer. I've always been on stage, and it's not really so much the attention that I crave. It's that rush of excitement.
Yes, I do.
Being in front of people. Like I said, it's not so much the attention. It's just, it's hard to explain. It's just how I've always been.
The way I look at it, from a stand-up's perspective, you're essentially creating something from absolutely nothing, and you're giving those people not just a sight to see, but you're giving them emotion. You're giving them feeling, and it's something that sticks with them. Mm-hmm. And people don't necessarily see it as moving someone, but once you move them like that, no matter what the emotion, they'll remember you. And to me, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. And there's a lot to that. I do sideshow and stilts and a lot of the weird fire stuff, but also I get booked to do a lot of kid stuff. I'm a juggler, contact juggler. I do a lot of flow art stuff. So
now juggling,
I love playing with kids.
I love juggling
in a non-weird way.
I love juggling. I've never learned myself, but my favorite juggler is Penn Jillette.
Oh yeah.
Penn Jillette. When did you start juggling? And what are your things that you like to juggle?
Mainly, I'm a ball juggler mainly. And I started juggling, I'm going to guess about 2011, because I was bored. I taught myself how to juggle with YouTube. My wife at the time, performing partner, was teaching a belly dance class in Parkersburg, and I didn't have Parkersburg, West Virginia. And I was bored, didn't have anything to do, so I spent an hour and a half with a couple balls and YouTube videos, and by the end of it, I could do a 3-ball cascade. And that was like, okay, well, I've got that. Let me learn another pattern. So I'd learn, and there are lots of 3-ball patterns. So I'd learn another pattern and then another pattern. And then I spent the first year that I was a juggler, I did almost nothing else, like as far as practice-wise.
Okay.
Because I always have to, depending on what I'm doing and what kind of shows I have coming up, is what I spend my time practicing.
And I imagine muscle memory is very important.
Oh yeah, very much. So yeah, you have to keep yourself in practice. So when I have juggling or contact juggling, flow arts gigs, that's what I practice. Or if I've got sideshow performances coming up with like this, I joined the Oddities and Curiosities Expo this year before everything got canceled. Mm-hmm. So that's a sideshow show. Or if I've got a fire performance coming up, like first night here in Pittsburgh, that's what I'll practice. But that year it was almost all juggling. Just to
now,
get down.
You mentioned a word that I'm not familiar with. I can surmise what it is due to the context, but for the audience, what would you define as flow art? Oh,
okay. So flow arts is kind of an umbrella term that covers. It's kind of hard to define, but in general terms, it's those performance and arts that. Circles. It's really okay. So it's those things like juggling and poi, like Tai Chi. They're very fluid movements and based around circulars and momentum.
Have you seen those balls that it's just like one ball that someone like juggles in their hand, kind of?
Yeah, you want to see one?
I would love to see one. That's perfect.
Honey, can you go get my juggling stuff, please?
Oh, we have a treat.
I have some of those.
Okay, then yes, of course, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I always travel with toys just to play with, and it's funny what happens. Like we spent the night at our friend's house last night in Morgantown, and there were a couple people she knew came over, and at 11 o'clock there were like 6 people with my flow props, like LED props in her front yard, trying to spin poi or trying to play with LED whips, or there was one kid trying to learn how to juggle or contact juggling, and it just turns into a party in somebody's front yard.
It sounds like a great time. I half expected you to come with Vera from Larger Than Life behind you. I was really in my thought, especially when I seen you. I said, oh, he's got an elephant with him. What is this called?
So contact juggling, so there you go. So contact juggling is the art or the practice of it, and it's so juggling is ball manipulation, if you want to define it that way. So contact juggling is ball manipulation while maintaining contact with the ball.
Okay.
And let me see.
Give the people a little example here.
Yeah, I have to stand up to get it on camera.
Oh, look at that.
There we go.
The way it looks so fluid too is always what the fascinating part is. Oh, and you guys do it so well that you make it seem like everyone could just pick it up and do it.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, is making it look easy.
That you just made it look like it levitated. Like, that was great. I hope everyone enjoyed that.
I hope they did too. So a little bit of contact juggling for you.
Yeah, that's so fascinating to me. You mentioned stilt walking.
Yep, stilt walking.
How high of a stilt do you walk on?
3 foot.
3 foot. Okay.
Nothing crazy. And I don't do a lot of stilt walking because I have a bum knee.
Okay,
but,
no, that's a fair reason.
But I enjoy the costuming, and to get back to playing with the kids, it's a very I don't want to say it's an easy gig, because stilt walking is hard, and there's it's stilt walking, but you don't have to perform so much. It's more about the costume and things like that.
Yeah, you see a lot of them like Statue of Liberty, Uncle Sam.
Yeah. So it's much more about the costume than what you do.
Now, do you incorporate juggling into stilt walking?
Not currently.
Not currently.
I haven't spent a lot of time practicing that one.
Now, to keep this all full circle, I know you play a lot of instruments. Mm-hmm. You want to list what those are?
Not the whole list, because then it comes off like bragging. But these days I play a lot of guitar. I do a lot of hand drumming, sing.
Any winded instruments?
Wind instruments? Well, I mean, I don't really play any wind instruments
and
these days.
I feel like I asked that,
unless you count bagpipes. I've got a set of practice chanters. I'm learning how to play bagpipes.
I do count that.
Practicing again on violin. I took violin lessons in college, so I'm getting back in practice on violin.
And I don't want it to seem like I asked that, like it was unimpressive. Oh yeah, those are what else do you play? Yeah. Now, do you incorporate your music in Po Folks Cabaret?
Yeah. In my variety shows, it's depending on the show and what we're doing, it can be, it could be 50% me singing songs, and then, like, say, sing a song and then do a sideshow act, sing a song, another sideshow act. So it depends on the venue, what kind of show. Sometimes I take music out, sometimes I leave it in.
What I'm curious about is, you mentioned, I think it was non-contact performance, not or non-stage performance.
Oh, yeah. Like atmosphere.
Yeah, there you go. That's the word. I'm sorry. Atmosphere performance. How would you describe that?
Well, we're basically the people who aren't on stage who are giving the event flavor. So if you're walking around in a festival and say that stilt walker walking up the street, or the juggler on the corner, or, the person in the kids area who's entertaining and playing with the kids.
So like performance eye candy almost.
Yeah. Absolutely. We give flavor to the event.
Okay. That's fascinating. Now, with comedy, have you ever done it on stage as like a stand-up?
Well, no, I've never tried stand-up.
Okay.
I do a lot of, I try to throw in jokes and things like that with a lot of my talking on the stage show.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
A lot of it is in audience interaction and things like that. So yeah, I try to work in as much humor and jokes as I can, but I've never tried to do just straight stand-up.
Okay, I'm sure.
Maybe one of these
honestly,
days.
With your resume, it doesn't seem like you'd have that much of an issue with it.
Yeah, I'm not shy talking to people, and being on stage making a fool of myself isn't a problem.
And one thing I noticed lacking from your resume, which I feel like you could throw all together, is the word clown.
Clown, yeah, that's true. I've never been a clown. And I have mad respect for those clowns, like Stolen Stitches. And, but that's something I've never tried. And it's its own, its own little beast and ways you do it. It's very physical comedy.
I've thought about contemplating becoming like a birthday party clown.
Yeah.
Like just right now, where there's not much, dress up, play with the kids, make balloon animals, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, every time I picture myself as a clown, it always seems more like Cokie the Clown.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like...
For any NoFX fans out there.
I like the, seems like a shift more towards like, maybe this is the wrong word for it, but steampunk clown.
Yeah. I've done a lot of steampunk events, and I dig that.
The whole cheesy Bozo the Clown never really worked for me. I like the, even if it's not meant to scary, but like darker and
a little grittier.
I like that. But even the old stereotype of like the hobo clown.
Yeah.
I prefer that over
the striped. The Bozo the Clown stuff.
That's wild to me. I have two things I want to get into. The first, and I'll let you decide. The first one's either the human blockhead or the eating of various things.
The eating of various things. Okay. We'll start with the eating of various things, and I do glass eating, fire eating, razor blades, and really each of them has its own way of being done. Of course, fire eating is different than anything else, but with things like glass eating, people pay to see the first part, but the real show is the next day.
Well, that was the most important question when it came to this.
That's what you get paid for. You don't get paid to eat it. You get paid to get rid of it.
How does it, without being too graphic, how does it come out?
Well, in the right circumstances, it comes out just fine. I drink a lot of coffee. That at my age, that keeps me regular.
That statement lets me know that there's been times where it didn't go smooth.
Yeah. Nobody wants to hear about those.
Well, like I said, without being too graphic, is it an issue of like the glass not like or razor blade not dissolving fully, or?
Well, the razor blades, those come back up. So you put them down. You don't digest those. Those are metal. Those will cut you up on the way down.
Yeah, there was a lot of questions about that. Okay, so, wow. It's rare that I'm stumped. So, well, let's talk about that razor eating. Is that I'm not familiar with it. Do you chew it, or is it just something you put in and you kind of down the hatch?
Down the hatch hole, and then there are a lot of variations on that act. And I don't want to give away anybody's secrets, but I'll give you an old adage in sideshow. It's something we say because there are a lot of magicians that kind of do some crossover, and people get magic and sideshow kind of confused. But sideshow is kind of a specific set of acts. But the old saying goes, magic is about illusions.
Okay.
Sideshow is about stunts. So what you see is what you get.
Fair enough. That's fascinating. I would have never thought that. And since you mentioned that, I actually had a magician, just a traditional magician, in here not too long ago.
Yeah, creepy bastards.
I agree. You guys are completely different.
Not even magicians even creep out sideshow performers. They're just weird.
Okay.
All right. You know who I'm talking about.
So the glass eating is a different. Completely, obviously, from the fire eating, but
it's a completely different act and different method.
Now, is that something that you like process through your digestive system, or?
Yeah, that one goes down and stays down. So and there are a couple different ways that's done. So that's one that.
When did you start eating glass and eating razor blades?
That probably came about 2013, 2014. See, once you learn a few acts and get in the kind of the community, you can trade acts. Say if you want to learn something, it's like, hey, if you'll show me how to do that, I'll show you how to do this.
Yeah.
So you get in, you learn a few things, and establish yourself as a performer so that you're in the community. And then you can pick up and trade. I was part of the Palace of Illusions back in 2014, I think it was. Maybe it was 13.
Okay.
And the Palace of Illusions was one of the last traveling classical sideshows in America. We did state fairs and county fairs, and it was a 10-in-1 stage show, working the midway. And
I'm so disappointed with coronavirus right now, because with doing this podcast, there would be so many things that I would go out and be able to see,
absolutely.
And that are just cut off because of the current circumstances. Like, it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I'm like, where can I see you perform? Well, I was going to be here.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. You know, I've had plenty of stuff canceled. Like, where? I'm like, catch my podcast.
I haven't heard about first night yet, so
yeah,
maybe we'll have a first night this year. Maybe not.
Here's hoping for something.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild, and I'm sure there's a lot of people then that are multifaceted within that community. It's so interesting, and even now, if you're not involved in it, you get the old imagery of under the big top, and I, not to offend anybody, but like freaks.
Yeah.
You know, like
freak shows were a specific kind. Like I was saying, sideshow is kind of a specific group of acts. Freak shows were their own specific types of things also.
And I've gotten that confused in the past because
and there was some overlap. There'd be freaks in the sideshow, and
I may be incorrect on this, but I want to say they evolved almost from more of like from the freak show, from the physical ailments to no, we're people, but here's what we could do that's wild.
Yeah, they're generally referred to natural borns. People who are born with certain conditions.
Not to say they're not fascinating, and if that's what they choose to do for work,
absolutely,
by all means.
A lot of them, that was their only means of being able to support themselves. They were performers. And that in itself, you're a performer.
Yeah.
That is an occupation. That's a career. That's nothing to look down on.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought they were being taken advantage of, and maybe there were people who were being taken advantage of.
I'm sure there were instances.
But, they're still people. They're still using their abilities to try to make a living, and they're, not hurting anybody. But, you have from Pinheads to the Lobster Boy Family, who are actually here from Pittsburgh.
I read or I listened to a podcast about a lobster family, and it may have been this one, but there was a situation where like the father ended up killing one of the sons.
Yeah, that's the family. Yeah,
I don't mean to dig up old dirt. I'm just I don't know the people, so I can't judge.
Right. Yeah, there was a lot of controversy and inter-family turmoil, and I don't know details because
I find it fascinating though that I don't know what the proper science term is, but that like can passes down. From,
absolutely.
From family member to family member.
And sometimes it's hands and feet. Sometimes it's one hand.
I've seen both. Yeah.
Actually, before I got into sideshow, the librarian where I first went to college had that condition.
Okay.
So I was kind of familiar with it beforehand, oddly enough, and it's very rare.
You know what? As politically correct as the world can be, it's human nature to be fascinated by something that's different.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is what that is. Now, there was a few big questions that stuck out to me. A lot of people didn't know, and I guess this is why this is my show and I'm the perfect host for it, what a human blockhead is.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was common knowledge.
Yeah, it surprises me when people don't know, but then I remember that not everybody got a sideshow education.
Do you want to explain to the people before you show them?
Yeah, so the human blockhead's one of the most common acts in sideshow, and it's been done for about 100 years, and started out with nails and ice picks and things like that. But basically, it's the ability to put large objects inside of your face that you wouldn't expect.
I've never seen this in person.
No,
I've seen it on TV, obviously, on the internet.
I hear that a lot. It's like I've never seen that in person.
I've never seen it in person, so I'm excited, but I don't know if I'm going to squeal.
Okay, well, to make it a little bit easier for you, we're going to start it off with an illusion.
Okay,
remember what I said about magic and illusions?
Yes.
So we're going to do a version of this that I like to call the sword and the stoner. If you'll examine that, make sure that it's metal blade. It's been sanitized. It doesn't telescope. Doesn't go down into the handle. It's a solid. It's actually a letter opener that I just really dug and shaved down to the right size. Now, the story of King Arthur and the Sword and the Stone.
Yes.
And how King Arthur became the King of England. So I'm going to give you the chance to become the King of Whitehall with this illusion.
Oh.
Now, we all know where King Arthur had to draw that sword from. Now remember, this is just an illusion.
Jesus God Almighty.
there's definitely not a 5-inch sword back in my face. Now, here's where the magic comes, and you get to become the king of Whitehall.
Oh, man.
By drawing the sword from the stone.
Oh, Jesus.
We use this camera or his camera? All right, here we go. And roll easy, easy, easy. No, just
Nope, you got me on that one. I'm done.
Man, that is my favorite thing to do, people. I do it every time. All right, one more time. I'll be good this time. Just draw it straight out of there and hold it up like you're He-Man. I have the power. Oh, that's disgusting. Do you have any idea? I don't want that thing back. It's been in my nose. You have any idea what's been up there? I survived the 90s. You have no idea what's been up that nose.
You got me. You scared the hell out of me. I was already nervous about pulling it. And he said, oh, fuck. I said, no, fuck.
So that's the human blockhead. And it's a very, very popular sideshow stunt. And I learned that when I was with the Palace of Illusion several years ago. And I made one of the mistakes that, well, I don't know, people do this all the time, come up to you after a show. How do you do that?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I'm not going to tell you because then you're going to pay me. So I was with the Palace of Illusions, and we were backstage between shows, and I was talking to the guy who was our blockhead at the time. And I turned to him and do what everybody does because I didn't know how it was. And I was like, so, Adam. And he looks at me and he goes, yes, Davi, knowing exactly what I was about to ask him.
Yeah.
And I did. I go, how the hell do you do that? So he told me, and I'll never forget what he told me. And what he told me was, it takes commitment.
Oh, Jesus.
It takes commitment to be a blockhead, and this is what commitment looks like in the sideshow.
It's a drill, folks. This is not a drill, but this is a drill.
This is just a drill.
Oh, and we're in. Holy shit. This is difficult to watch in person, people. It's impressive, but difficult to watch.
So, yeah, commitment.
Oh, round of applause for you, man. I know I was more fucking a nervous wreck over here this entire time than you were. Oh, I feel alive after that.
Yeah.
I didn't even do anything.
A lifetime of bad decisions.
Well, folks, for those of you who wanted to know what a human blockhead was, I hope you have a great example right there. Ta-da. Wow, I am blown away. So when you asked him that, how hesitant was he to teach you?
He was actually very helpful and directed me and taught me safe ways to explore and see what I could do.
I'm going to be honest with you. That is one of the things I have no interest in finding out how to do.
I don't blame you. It's what I tell people is it's a lot cheaper to pay me to do it than for you to pay your hospital bill.
I am right behind that. There's a few things I would like to try, but as far as the dangerous stuff, you can have it. What's a lot of people want to know what's the most dangerous, or not most dangerous, but what's the worst injury you've gotten from either practicing or performing your stunts?
The worst was probably I had a really bad burn on my hand several years ago that cost me feeling and movement. I have peripheral neuropathy in my hand now. I have a lot of injuries. I've messed myself up a lot over the years, so I'm a bag of arthritis held together with duct tape and fancy jewelry. But yeah, I had a burn that covered most of my hand from fire breathing, and I had 3rd degree, and you can see the discoloration through there on the side of my hand, and so that was probably the worst. But then there have been lots of smaller.
With the human blockhead practice, I'm sure, especially early on, do you cut yourself inside wherever you're going?
Yeah, and even still, it happens sometimes, especially with the drill, because drills are rough.
Yeah.
I had an embarrassing accident. My last show back in February was at Oddities and Curiosities in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the first show that I did that day, it didn't go well, and I had blood streaming out of my face as soon as I did it. And I was like, so I did that, and I tried to move into a song, and I was trying to make jokes. And
in hindsight, do you see how that could come off as a little bit of psycho?
It was, yeah. And then, I had blood down my shirt for the rest of the day, and it let me make jokes about it. Yeah, so like
Fuck it,
every other
keep
set
singing.
that I had splotches of blood on my wife beater, so when I do the the bed of nails routine,
Okay.
I take my shirt off to go, so you don't have anything under your shirt. But I'd strip down to my wife beater and make jokes about how bad the first show went that day.
Okay. Now, maybe it's a cousin, maybe it's completely different, but do you do any like sword swallowing?
I do not do sword swallowing. That's on my short list.
Okay.
It's one I want to add to my my list here real soon, and I've got several friends who do it. It's just a matter of
Now,
adding that one.
you haven't mentioned this outside of like the stilts, but have you done any performances where there's been a balancing act or maybe a height involved or something of that nature? Or have you worked with anyone that does like, those motorcycles in a cage, like something like that?
I've never worked with those guys, and no, I don't really. I can't think of any other really height based performance things I've done.
Now, also when you say card throwing, I understand conceptually what that is, but as a performance, what is card throwing?
Well, I've never actually been able to work it into a workable act. I have lots of ideas in my head of different things you can do. Basically, it's playing cards.
Yeah.
And I can stick a playing card in a foam target from about 30 feet away.
Oh,
So it's part of, and you can do things like cutting vegetables,
Okay.
and they're popping balloons.
like somebody hold a banana in their mouth and you cut the tip off.
Yeah, something
Okay.
like that. I've never performed. I've never done a card throwing act. I've spent years throwing them, and I throw them.
But you do
for fun.
have another throwing act.
Yeah, and I have a set of cards for that also. I do have the metal cards that I do in my knife throwing act.
Do you want to tell us a little more about that? A little birdie told me you do quite an impressive trick with, I believe, four cards.
Yeah.
Four knives in each hand.
That's my signature throw. It's called the showstopper. I started throwing knives. I started training for the act about 3 years ago, and I'd thrown knives occasionally growing up, but seriously started spending hours a day doing it about 3 years ago. And after about 1.5 years of practice, I was comfortable enough to start doing the act with a live assistant and throwing around her. So I've added that to my routine. But then, you have to, well, as a performer, one of the things you try to come up with is your own take on acts.
Absolutely.
So my signature throw is how I close my my knife throwing act, and as far as I know, I'm the only person in the world who does this. But it's 4 knives. It's a set of 3 throws, 4 knives at a time, so 2 knives in each hand.
Okay.
Underhand.
Oh.
So you're throwing. It's called gunslinger style rather than throwing like normal. You're throwing underhand like gunslinger. So it's 12 knives and 3 throws up either side of my assistant.
That's impressive.
And I haven't hit her yet either.
No?
No, Carrie appreciates that.
I imagine you practice with a different target before you finally move on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a practice board at home with targets painted on it, so I know where my zones are. And I spend a lot of time throwing. And I'm one of the things without a performing industry these days, I've been working on getting into competitive knife throwing.
Okay.
So
have you done any of the axe throwing? Have you tried any of that? I know that's popular
I've done
nowadays.
a little bit, just for fun.
Yeah.
And I have a couple axes, but I've never tried like stage axe throwing. It's fun. I like throwing anything.
I've never been myself, but at some point I'd like to check it out. That's man. What's in the future for you though? What, like you said, you got a few things on the burner.
That's a good question. I mean, with the entertainment industry the way it is right now, it's hard to say what's coming up. It's hard to tell when we're going to be able to perform again. So, me and a lot of performers are trying to find ways to use our skills that aren't just on stage and drawing an audience, because we recognize that we draw audiences, and that's dangerous for people.
Yeah.
And with great power comes great responsibility. So I don't want to kill anybody. As much as I want to perform and as much as I want to be on stage, I don't want to be responsible for bringing people together and getting somebody sick. So I've been working on things like what you're doing, podcast. We've talked about starting a podcast and talking to performer friends and things like that, or like tutorial videos.
Okay.
I've always been into teaching and education. I do drumming classes and workshops and things.
The blessing and the curse of the performances you do are that they are so amazing in person.
Yes.
But they do not translate well to watching a video.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's unfortunate.
Live performance has always been a very big part of what I do. Like I've never recorded any albums. I've never recorded any of my shows to sell.
Okay.
Intentionally. Like I don't record my shows for future sales or anything like that. Just because I believe in live performance, and if you want to see what I do and you want to see my show, you have to come in person.
Now, are you, during this quarantine, we all have to adjust, obviously.
Yep.
Are you available for private bookings?
I'm not taking any bookings at all right now.
Okay.
I'm not even entertaining bookings till maybe New Year. If they have first night, maybe I'll make that my line in the sand.
Okay.
Let's see how numbers go.
No, that's understandable. Where can the people find you online?
We got www.pofolkscabaret.com. You can find me on Facebook, Devi Della Fiamma, or the Po Folks Cabaret. And I'm performing with Steel Town Fire here in Pittsburgh. I'm part of the Robin Marks Foundation, which is a sideshow nonprofit that helps promote sideshow arts.
Okay. We need more arts programs here.
Absolutely.
It's dying. Yeah, art is just as important as anything else, because when you come and see some type of performance, you are taken out of whatever bullshit you're going through. Even if it's for a little bit of time, it's a release. We're in a world where we're currently learning how important our mental health is. Artists, benefit your mental health.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming in. And guys, if my expression during this podcast has been any sign, whenever this man is out somewhere, when he's finally performing, fucking see him. It was nothing but a treat. And if you liked it online, even better in person. I'm still a little shocked at how he got me, because I immediately bit it. I got terrified. Check out the new shirt they're in. You can check us out at inquisitiveminds.com, INQUIZATIVE, minds.com. We're available. We're all streaming service platforms. You got Pandora, Apple Music, all the rest, whatever the fuck you guys listen to, all that shit that says other in the analytics. I've been Johnny Smith. Thank you so much.